Iron Ridge was a town built on grit and steel, a community forged in the fires of its once thriving mining industry. But on a brisk autumn morning, everything changed. The sun rose to an eerie silence that blanketed the streets, and the town, once bustling with life, stood eerily empty. Captain Sarah Bennett surveyed the deserted streets from the helicopter as it descended. Her team, an elite special ops unit known for handling the most unusual and dangerous missions, was tasked with uncovering the mystery behind the sudden disappearance of Iron Ridge's entire population. Touchdown in 5, the pilot's voice crackled through her headset. Sarah nodded, her eyes scanning the abandoned buildings below, noting the cars left in haphazard positions, the doors ajar, and the eerie stillness that defied logic. As the helicopter landed in the town square, Sarah's team disembarked swiftly, their movements precise and practiced. Lieutenant James Carter, her second in command, approached her, his face grim. "Looks like everyone just vanished into thin air, Captain," he said, adjusting his gear. Sarah nodded, her jaw set. "Let's move out. We need to find any clues that can tell us what happened here." The team fanned out, sweeping through the empty streets. They found signs of a sudden departure, meals left uneaten, television still on, toys abandoned mid-play. But there were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no bodies. In the town hall, Sarah and James sifted through piles of documents and reports. "There has to be something," Sarah muttered, frustration creeping into her voice. "People don't just disappear." "Captain, over here," James called from a side room. He was holding a journal, its pages filled with frantic, barely legible writing. "It's from the mayor. Listen to this. The mine, it's all coming from the mine. We should never have disturbed it. They're coming for us." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "The old mine? It was shut down decades ago after that explosion. Why would anyone go back there?" James shrugged. "Desperation? Curiosity? Whatever the reason, it seems like they found more than they bargained for." "All right," Sarah said, straightening up. "We need to gear up and head to the mine. If that's where they went, that's where we'll find our answers." The team assembled at the entrance to the abandoned mine, a gaping maw in the hillside that seemed to exhale a chilling breath. Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. The place had an aura of malevolence, a sense that it was more than just an old, abandoned mine. "Stay sharp," she ordered as they entered, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint smell of decay. The tunnels stretched out like a labyrinth, each turn revealing more eerie silence. As they ventured deeper, they began to notice odd things. Tools left in mid-use, lanterns still flickering with life, and strange symbols etched into the walls. "These symbols," James said, tracing one with his gloved hand. "They look ancient. And wrong." "Keep moving," Sarah said, her voice steady. "We need to find the townsfolk." Deeper still, they found signs of a struggle. Scattered belongings, drops of blood, and the occasional tattered piece of clothing. The further they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became, as if the very walls were closing in on them. Then they heard it, a faint, distant scream that echoed through the tunnels. It was followed by a chorus of whispers, unintelligible but filled with malice. "Did you hear that?" one of the team members whispered, his voice trembling. "We all did," Sarah said, her heart pounding. "Stay together. Weapons ready." They rounded a corner and entered a large cavern, their flashlights revealing a horrific sight. Dozens of townsfolk were huddled together, their eyes wide with terror. They were alive, but barely. And in the center of the cavern stood a figure, cloaked in shadows, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, stepping forward. The figure turned, its voice a chilling whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You should not have come here. This place is cursed, bound by the screams of those who died here long ago." "What do you want?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The figure laughed, a sound that sent chills down their spines. "I am bound to this place, and now, so are you." Suddenly, the cavern erupted into chaos. Shadowy forms emerged from the walls, attacking the team and the townsfolk. Sarah and her team fought back, their weapons useless against the incorporeal assailants. "Fall back," Sarah shouted, but it was too late. The shadows overwhelmed them, and everything went black. When Sarah awoke, she was alone in the darkness. The screams of her team and the townsfolk echoed in her ears. She realized with horror that they had become part of the mine's curse, bound to its darkness forever. As she struggled to stand, she vowed to find a way to break the curse, to save her team and the townsfolk, no matter the cost. The screaming mine had claimed them, but she would not let it keep them. The sun dipped behind the rugged hills of Iron Ridge, casting long, menacing shadows over the ghostly quiet town. The special ops team, now accompanied by the town's remaining police force, stood at the entrance of the ancient mine, its gaping mouth like a portal to another world. "Remember, no heroics," Captain Sarah Bennett warned, her voice firm yet laced with an underlying tension. "We stick together, we find the townsfolk, and we get out." "Clear." A chorus of affirmatives echoed back. Lieutenant James Carter gave her a tight nod, his expression grim. They had all heard the whispers, the disembodied voices that seemed to rise from the bowels of the earth, warning them to stay away. As they ventured into the mine, the air grew colder, and the faint smell of damp earth mingled with something far more sinister. The beams from their flashlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating rusted tracks, abandoned tools, and eerie symbols etched into the stone walls. "These markings," James muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "They're not just graffiti. They look ritualistic." Sarah frowned, touching one of the symbols. It felt warm to the touch, pulsating with a faint, unsettling energy. "Keep moving," she ordered, shaking off the unease that clung to her. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The mine seemed to close in on them, the walls narrowing, the air thickening. Every now and then, they heard faint noises, whispers, footsteps, the distant echo of a scream. "Anyone else hearing that?" Officer Martinez asked, his usually steady voice quivering. "Focus," Sarah snapped. "It's just the wind." Mines are full of strange sounds. But deep down, she knew it wasn't the wind. The mine was alive with something ancient and malevolent, something that had been awakened by the townsfolk's ill-fated curiosity. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air. The team froze, their flashlights swinging wildly to find the source. They rounded a corner and entered a vast cavern, the beams revealing a scene of horror. The missing townsfolk were there, their faces contorted in terror, eyes wide with a hollow, lifeless gaze. "Oh my God," James breathed. "What the hell happened here?" Before Sarah could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. From the shadows emerged creatures twisted and grotesque, crawlers, their bodies contorted, limbs elongated unnaturally. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent intelligence. "Open fire," Sarah commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. The team unleashed a barrage of gunfire, but the bullets seemed to have little effect on the creatures. They moved with unnatural speed, dodging and weaving through the hail of bullets. "Fall back," James shouted, but it was too late. The crawlers were upon them, tearing through their ranks with claws like daggers. Sarah fought desperately, her heart pounding as she tried to fend off the relentless onslaught. Amid the chaos, she caught sight of a figure standing at the edge of the cavern, watching them with cold, calculating eyes. It was the same shadowy figure from the journal, the one who had warned them about the mine's curse. "Who are you?" Sarah yelled, her voice echoing off the cavern walls. "What do you want?" The figure stepped forward, revealing a face that was both human and not, features twisted by some dark power. "I am the guardian of this place," it said, its voice a chilling whisper. "And you have trespassed into my domain. We're here to save these people." Sarah shouted back, "Release them." The guardian laughed, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. "They belong to the mine now, as do you." Before she could react, the guardian raised a hand, and the shadows around them seemed to come alive. They coiled and twisted, forming tendrils that lashed out, ensnaring Sarah and her team. "No!" Sarah screamed, struggling against the darkness that wrapped around her like a vice. But the more she fought, the tighter it held. "Sarah, We have to retreat. James shouted, trying to free himself. We need to regroup. With a monumental effort, Sarah broke free from the tendrils and grabbed James. Fall back, she ordered, her voice raw with desperation. Everyone, fall back. The team retreated, their movements frantic as they stumbled through the tunnels, the shadows nipping at their heels. They burst out into the open air, gasping for breath, their bodies bruised and bleeding. We need a new plan, Sarah panted, her mind racing. This isn't just a rescue mission anymore. We're dealing with something far more dangerous. James nodded, his face pale but determined. What do we do? Sarah looked back at the mine, its entrance looming like the mouth of a beast. We find out what that guardian is, and we destroy it. For the townsfolk, for our team, for all of us. As they regrouped and tended to their wounds, Sarah felt a new resolve harden within her. The screaming mine had claimed too many lives, but it would not claim theirs. They would uncover its secrets, confront its guardian, and put an end to its curse, no matter the cost. The team set up a makeshift camp at the mouth of the screaming mine, their faces grim and determined. The air was thick with the scent of fear and sweat, and the distant echoes of the mine's eerie whispers seemed to mock their every move. Captain Sarah Bennett gathered her team around a flickering campfire, their shadows dancing ominously on the surrounding rocks. We can't go back in there unprepared, Sarah began, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. We need to understand what we're dealing with. James, what do we know about that guardian? Lieutenant James Carter rubbed his temples, the exhaustion evident in his eyes. From what we saw, it seems to have control over the shadows and those creatures. It called itself the Guardian, which implies it has a role in protecting something or someone. Maybe it's protecting whatever is causing the curse, Officer Martinez suggested, his voice hushed as if speaking too loudly might summon the horrors they had just escaped. Agreed, Sarah nodded. But we need more information. There's got to be something in the town records or folklore that can give us a clue. We should split into 2 teams, James proposed. One team stays here to keep watch and gather any additional intel from the mine. The other heads back to the town to dig through the records. I'll lead the team to town, Sarah decided. James, you stay here with Martinez and the others. Keep a close eye on that entrance. If anything comes out, I want to know immediately. As the teams prepared to set out, Sarah felt a twinge of apprehension. They were venturing into uncharted territory, both literally and figuratively. The stakes were higher than ever, and one misstep could mean the difference between life and death. The town of Iron Ridge was a ghost town in every sense of the word. The streets were eerily silent, the buildings standing as hollow remnants of a once thriving community. Sarah led her team to the town hall, its facade weathered and cracked. Inside, they found the records room, a dusty archive of the town's history. Spread out, Sarah ordered. Look for anything that mentions the mine, the curse, or any strange occurrences. Hours passed as they sifted through old documents, their patience wearing thin. Just as Sarah was about to lose hope, Officer Lee called out, "Captain, I think I've found something." Sarah hurried over, peering over Lee's shoulder at the tattered journal in his hands. "What is it?" "It's an old miner's diary," Lee explained. He talks about strange rituals being performed in the mine and mentions a shadowy figure appearing to the miners. Sarah took the journal, scanning the pages. This shadowy figure sounds like our guardian. It says here that the miners were trying to harness some kind of dark power. They believed it would bring them wealth and prosperity, but instead, it brought death and destruction. There's more, Lee added, flipping to the last page. The miner writes about a final ritual to bind the power within the mine. He says they created a guardian to ensure no one could ever release it. So the guardian isn't just protecting the curse, Sarah mused. It's preventing anyone from unleashing it again. We need to find a way to neutralize the guardian, Lee said. If it's tied to the curse, then destroying it might break the curse and free the townsfolk. But how? Sarah wondered aloud. There must be something in here that tells us how to defeat it. As they continued to search through the records, they came across references to an ancient artifact, the Heart of Shadows. According to the documents, it was the source of the mine's power, and the Guardian's strength was directly linked to it. If we can find and destroy the Heart of Shadows, Sarah concluded, we might be able to weaken the Guardian enough to kill it. Back at the mine, James and his team kept a vigilant watch. The hours dragged on, the oppressive silence broken only by the occasional shifting of rocks. Suddenly, a low rumble reverberated through the ground, and the mine's entrance seemed to pulse with a dark energy. "Captain, something's happening," James reported over the radio. "Hold your position," Sarah replied. "We're on our way back. We found something that might help." By the time Sarah's team returned, the mine's entrance was glowing with a malevolent light. "We need to act fast," she said, her voice urgent. "We think there's an artifact called the Heart of Shadows inside the mine. It's the source of the Guardian's power. If we destroy it, we might be able to end this." "Let's move," James commanded. "Stay sharp and stick together." They descended into the mine once more, the oppressive darkness closing in around them. The symbols on the walls seemed to writhe and twist, the air thick with a palpable malevolence. As they ventured deeper, the whispers grew louder, merging into a cacophony of voices that threatened to overwhelm them. "There," Sarah pointed to a faint, pulsing light ahead. "That must be the Heart of Shadows." They approached the chamber cautiously, their flashlights revealing a pedestal with a dark, pulsating crystal at its center. The Guardian stood before it, its eyes glowing with a cold, unearthly light. "You cannot stop what has been set in motion," the Guardian intoned, its voice echoing through the chamber. "This place will be your tomb." "Not if we have anything to say about it," Sarah retorted, raising her weapon. "Take it down." The team opened fire, but the Guardian's shadowy tendrils deflected their bullets effortlessly. It advanced on them, its form shifting and undulating like a nightmare given life. "James, the crystal!" Sarah shouted. "We need to destroy it." James nodded, making a break for the pedestal. The Guardian lashed out, but Sarah and the others provided cover, drawing its attention. With a final, desperate effort, James reached the Heart of Shadows and smashed it with the butt of his rifle. The crystal shattered, its dark energy dissipating in a blinding flash of light. The Guardian let out an unearthly scream, its form disintegrating into the shadows from which it had emerged. As the light faded, the oppressive darkness lifted, and the mine seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The missing townsfolk, their eyes no longer hollow, began to stir, freed from the curse that had bound them. "We did it," Sarah said, her voice trembling with relief. "We actually did it." James nodded, his expression a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "Let's get these people out of here." As they led the townsfolk to safety, Sarah couldn't help but glance back at the mine. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but she knew the memory of the screaming mine would haunt them forever. The townsfolk of Iron Ridge, their eyes adjusting to the harsh daylight after years in darkness, shuffled out of the mine in a daze. Sarah and her team guided them to the waiting ambulances, the relief in the air palpable. But Sarah's mind was still back in the mine, her gut telling her that something wasn't right. "We need to regroup and make sure the curse is truly broken," she said, her voice low but urgent. "We can't leave any loose ends." James nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I'll get the team ready." As they prepared to re-enter the mine, a low, ominous rumble echoed from within. The ground shook, and a deep, malevolent voice seemed to emanate from the very earth beneath them. "You cannot escape the darkness," the voice intoned. "You have merely disrupted my plans, but you will never defeat me." Sarah's heart sank. The Guardian's death had not ended the threat. It had merely angered whatever dark force lay at the heart of the mine. "We need to find the source of that voice," she said. "Whatever it is, it's still down there, and it's not done with us." The team descended once more into the mine, their determination renewed, but their nerves frayed. The shadows seemed to close in around them, and the whispers returned, louder and more insistent than before. As they ventured deeper, they reached a previously unexplored chamber, the walls lined with ancient, ominous runes that seemed to pulse with dark energy. There, James pointed to a massive stone altar in the center of the chamber. That must be the source. As they approached, the air grew colder, and the shadows coalesced into a towering, monstrous form. The entity's eyes glowed with an otherworldly fire, its presence overwhelming. You have come to face your doom, it hissed. I am the darkness that has plagued this land for centuries. You are nothing but mortal fools. We're not afraid of you, Sarah shot back, though her voice wavered slightly. We're here to end this. The entity laughed, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. You cannot end what is eternal, but you will try and you will fail. With a roar, the entity lashed out, its shadowy tendrils striking with deadly precision. The team fought back, their weapons blazing, but it quickly became clear that conventional means would not defeat this foe. We need to disrupt those runes, Sarah yelled. They're feeding it power. As the team spread out, targeting the runes with everything they had, the entity's form began to waver. With each shattered rune, it grew weaker, its attacks more desperate. But it was far from defeated. James, his face set in grim determination, found an ancient book near the altar. Flipping through its pages, he realized it contained the ritual that had originally summoned the entity. Sarah, I think I found a way to banish it, he shouted. Cover me while I read this. Sarah and the others formed a protective circle around James as he began to chant the incantation. The entity howled in rage, its form flickering and writhing as the ancient words took effect. Your efforts are futile, it screamed. I will return, and I will bring ruin upon you all. But James continued, his voice rising above the din. As he reached the final words, the chamber was filled with a blinding light. The entity let out one last, furious scream before it was torn apart, its essence scattered into the void. The oppressive darkness lifted, and the mine fell silent. The team stood in stunned silence, the weight of their victory slowly sinking in. It's over, Sarah whispered, almost not daring to believe it. We did it. Let's get out of here, James said, his voice hoarse but triumphant. And make sure this place is sealed for good. As they emerged from the mine, the first rays of dawn were breaking over the horizon, casting a warm, golden light over the town. The nightmare was finally over, and Iron Ridge could begin to heal. Years passed, and Iron Ridge slowly became a thriving community once more. The story of the Screaming Mine became a local legend, a cautionary tale passed down through generations. Sarah, now the town's sheriff, patrolled the streets with a watchful eye. She had become a guardian in her own right, ensuring that the darkness that had once threatened Iron Ridge would never return. One evening, as she stood at the edge of town, she felt a familiar chill run down her spine. Turning, she saw a shadowy figure standing at the entrance to the sealed mine. For a moment, fear gripped her heart, but then she realized it was only a trick of the light. She smiled, her resolve stronger than ever. The darkness would always be a part of Iron Ridge's history, but it no longer held power over them. They had faced it and emerged victorious. As the sun set over the mountains, casting a warm glow over the town, Sarah knew that they were safe. The Screaming Mine was silent, and the darkness had been banished. But she would always be vigilant, ready to face whatever new challenges the future might bring. For as long as she stood watch, Iron Ridge would remain safe, and the memory of their victory would live on. In the depths of the mine, buried under tons of rock, the remnants of the Heart of Shadows lay dormant. But it was no longer a source of fear. It was a testament to the strength and courage of those who had faced the darkness and won. And as long as that memory endured, the light would always prevail.